On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, the hardest working man in show business is back from vacation. Whew. It's good to be back, TJ. I did need the vacation, though, after like 1 full month, maybe longer. I don't know. I didn't actually add it up, but it was about a month of sitting on my ass and watching sports. It'll leave a guy exhausted, and I needed to take a break. What did I do on my break? I sat on my ass and I watched sports all week. That's basically all I did. So did I even take a break at all? I don't know. Maybe I was still working the whole time. But we're back. The show is back. We are going to talk about the NBA preseason finally being over and the players are ready to start trying again. How do we know this? Because teammates are fighting each other on the bench. Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson get into it. Bones Highland and Mason Plumlee get into it. Anytime teammates are fighting each other, there's a competitive spirit in the air that you have to love about the NBA. We started this regular season with Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole. We end the regular season with Rudy Gobert punching Kyle Anderson. If you don't love NBA basketball, folks, what is wrong with you? We're going to put a bow on the NBA regular season, get excited about these playoffs, because as much as the regular season does suck in the NBA, the playoffs are incredible because the guys actually try. And I think the playoffs are wide open. I think we'll talk through it. We'll talk through it today. Also, the transfer portal in college basketball is popping off. And it does always. This is the new norm in college basketball. But every single offseason, the bar finds a way to raise itself. And the Hunter Dickinson entering in the portal. Caleb Love enters the portal. He's now committed to Michigan, but the fact that he transfers from North Carolina is pretty crazy. Not exactly shocking, I guess, given the circumstances, but still, like the idea that we live in an era of college basketball where a guy who is so synonymous with North Carolina, so synonymous with like the biggest moment in North Carolina basketball in the last X number of years, decides to transfer. Is crazy. LJ Cryer transfers from Baylor. He goes to Houston. Ryan Nimhard is in the portal from Creighton. Kerr Kriisa transfers from Arizona. You're starting to get like caliber of players that we've never seen before that are now transferring. Are they chasing the bag? Are they chasing more shots? Are they chasing a better draft status? All of the above. I do not know. But we're going to talk about the transfer portal because it is no longer like an oddity of college basketball. It is now like part of the season. We have now in college basketball like become the NBA where like the free agency is just as juicy as the regular season because I really do. I thought about this today. You could probably go undefeated in college basketball if you made a lineup of guys that enter the portal this offseason. I think you could, if you put all those guys on one team and brought them into next season, they're unanimous number one, and I think they run the table. I think that team is absolutely loaded. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll talk a little Masters. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Succession. I don't know. What a great episode that was. See what else comes up. It'll be a fun show. Let's get into it. All right, before we get started, TJ, I meant to ask you because I got so self-absorbed after the Final Four, and UConn wins the national championship, and Jake and I are doing our thing on the show. I forgot to ask how your Final Four experience was. We didn't really talk about it at all on the show. We talked going in that you had said that last year was your first Final Four that you had gone to, which was an all-timer. We were worried that this year, given the circumstances, given that Houston doesn't exactly get people as excited as New Orleans, I was worried that you would not have as much fun this Final Four. I was also worried, full transparency, last year New Orleans, the producer of my podcast, Jim, who's still a good friend of mine, was robbed at knife point. And part of me was a little worried that like I had something to do with that, and I was hoping maybe I don't bring that with me to Barstool, and now my producer, it's just like something that happens to me is like I go to the Final Four and my producer gets robbed at knife point. So yeah, what did you get robbed at knife point, TJ?
Not at knife point, no, but
okay.
I mean, Houston was kind of lame, I guess. I had like low expectations going into it. I thought the bar that we did a live show at, Kirby Ice House, was awesome. I thought the stadium was all right, but like coming from New Orleans and comparing that to like the nightlife and the general like environment of like, oh, it's the Final Four in the city. New Orleans like blew Houston out of the water. Like we walked around downtown Houston one of the days, and I know that downtown Houston is apparently not like the poppin' area of Houston.
It's like 45 minutes from the stadium. I felt like
it was like the Friday at the middle of the day, and there was just nobody outside. Like the streets were empty. I don't know. It was weird. I don't know why the lights went off in here.
Oh, good. Turn them on. There we go. Motion activated lights. Yeah, that was my sense too. Is that's what the great cities are, the cities that you can go take a piss in like a random bar off of the beaten path. And then there's like a sign above the urinal that's like, welcome to the Final Four. And you're like, oh my God, even this, like every single square inch of the city feels like it's like rallying around the big event going on there. And New Orleans certainly does that. Houston, not as much, but we had a good time, right? Like it was fun.
I enjoyed that. Lake Charles is awesome. That was my first time there.
My favorite part about the Final Four is when we drove 2 hours away from the Final Four.
Yeah, I got to go to Buc-ee's for the first time. That was pretty big for me.
My Final Four recap: the casino 2 hours away, and the gas station on the way to the casino. Those are my two favorite takeaways.
Pretty exciting.
All right, I'm riding solo today. I don't want this to just be me rambling. So this is the challenge on solo shows, TJ, is like we got to get you into the mix more. We don't want to, because I do think that like, so some feedback out of the gate, and we'll get to the NBA stuff in a second, but I felt like the initial launch of the show and where we took it for the NCAA tournament and all that sort of thing. I thought it was okay. I thought like the feedback was all over the place, which in my mind is if there's somebody complaining about every single aspect of the show, that's how you know you have a good show. Because when everybody's complaining about the same thing, you're like, damn, that one thing must really stink. But there were people complaining that there's too many guests. There were people complaining there's not enough guests. The shows are too long. The shows are not long enough. Or I guess we didn't really get that as much. There aren't enough shows. I don't know. We felt like we were all over the place. It's a work in progress. We're having fun with it. And so what I don't want though is like, I definitely don't want this show to be me just like rambling and you sitting there thinking this man's absolutely insane. So if at any point, TJ, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Please, on behalf of all the listeners, please feel free to chime in and call me out and say that makes no goddamn sense, sir. Please explain yourself or whatever else. So yeah. That's that. The NBA regular season is over, though. I want to talk about that. The play-in matchups are set. I am pro play-in game. I think this is definitely a gimmick. I think this is obviously Adam Silver, who I do not like, and I think is a bad commissioner, and I am on record as saying that, and I will continue to believe that until he does something that makes me think he's a good commissioner. But this is one of his ideas that felt gimmicky at the time. I think it's sort of his baby. Like this is kind of like I don't know if I want to be dumb enough to say this is like an Adam Silver legacy play, but sometimes I feel that way when he talks about the play-in games and he's like protective of the play-in games and all that sort of thing. But I do like the play-in game as a basketball fan. I like that we have this on Tuesday and Wednesday. And moving forward, like whoever wins, loses, whatever. It was a little confusing at first. I'll be honest. Like the first year they put this in, I was like, okay, what happens? The loser plays who and the winner? Then I turned my brain on for like 5 seconds, and suddenly it made a lot of sense. And so now here we are. And I like the playing games. I like the Hawks are going to play the Heat, Timberwolves play the Lakers, Bulls play the Raptors, Thunder play the Pelicans. If you don't know how the format works, I'm not going to explain it to you. Just go Google it. It's semi-complicated, like I said, but then if you use your brain for half a second, you'll be able to figure it out. I am excited for playing games. I'm excited for the playoffs. First, I want to talk about the regular season, this NBA regular season, and I'm going to preface it. I need to have this disclaimer out of the gate. I guess I don't need to, but I always feel obligated to because of the basketball culture wars that Big Cat and I talked about, and that are just always ongoing. That like if you pick you basically have to pick a side, whether you're a college guy or an NBA guy, and then once you pick that side, you are not allowed to criticize the other side in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you just come across like a hater and like a butthurt loser that the others, it's just it's very annoying. And maybe that's more indicative of me spending too much time online and me talking to the worst people that the sport has to offer. I don't know, but that's the sentiment I feel, is that like you have to pick which team you're on, and then once you're on that team, stay out of the other team's business and don't say anything. I say that to say I've never wanted to play the culture war thing. I freaking love basketball. That's all that's been my mindset the whole time. I gravitate more towards college because college represents the basketball that I grew up on. That looks more like the sport that I was taught at a young age. It's more the sport that I fell in love with. But at the end of the day, I freaking go nuts for the NBA playoffs. How could you not? The best players in the world actually carrying, giving it their all that sort of thing. I love it. I do love the NBA playoffs, but that's my way of prefacing all of this to say that this was probably the worst NBA regular season of my lifetime. This NBA regular season was absolutely horrendous. But I don't say that coming from a standpoint of like I'm a college guy and I have to shit on the NBA to make college look better, because I think this college season was kind of bad, And I think like basketball in general is in a really weird spot, and I guess this is why I go so crazy thinking about the quote unquote culture war of basketball, is that it really does have a crabs in the bucket mentality of like, the NFL and college football cast such a huge shadow over sports in this country that like NBA and college basketball, instead of like coming together like it used to feel in the 90s, and saying like we can grow this sport and build this sport in this country, it is now like crabs in the bucket, like pulling down each other and saying like you can't be better than me, and you can't, and you look up and like, and at the end of the day, like the sport as a whole suffers. And we have a season that we had this year where on the college side, we let the Purdue Boilermakers be ranked number 1 in the country for like half the fucking season, which looking back is like, who let that happen? I mean, Rutgers did all they could, TJ. God bless you. You guys beat Purdue in Mackey Arena. You tried to tell the country this team is not the number 1 team in the country.
We probably should have been number 1 after that.
Yeah, that was the problem we had with college, and then even beyond that, like the biggest issue, like college felt like it fell into the NBA trap, where like the biggest story of the season was the Alabama murder situation, where like you're talking about the off court shit instead of like the on court stuff, and like it was. I don't know. It just like college basketball season wasn't the most fun. Like it wasn't the best that we could have offered as a sport. Meanwhile, the NBA, I do think that this was the worst regular season of my life. I sat down this morning and I was trying to think of like, if I was off the top of my head going to put into a time capsule, say TJ, if we were doing like an NBA regular season time capsule and you had to pick moments on the court, no off court stories, no free agency stories, no on-court drama stories of, Rudy Gobert punching his teammate. None of that shit. Just like, what a great performance. What a great, like what comes to mind with like the 2016 season, I thought was when Steph went bananas and was, everyone remembers at Oklahoma City, he hits the shot, Mike Breen bangs all over himself. And it was a regular season basketball game. And it's crazy to think back on that, but like somehow the entire country was watching that. And it was just a random ass game that had just as much of an impact as the regular season games have now. But like for some reason at that moment in time, we were all locked in because that Warriors season was magical. If you were to do that with this NBA season, I think it's LeBron breaking Kareem's record, which is like less about this season and more about like the longevity of LeBron, but it happened this season. So we'll throw that in there. I think Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard scoring 71 points each. That was I remember both of those being just awesome moments from the season. I don't know what else we put in there.
And two of those 3 moments, you could argue, were overshadowed by football.
Yeah.
Because one of the 71-point games was DeMar Hamlin, and the LeBron was in the middle of Super Bowl week.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there you go. And the All-Star game stunk. This was the worst All-Star game I've ever witnessed in my life. The slam dunk contest was won by a G League guy who I love. Mac McClung had. You won't find a bigger Mac McClung fan on planet. I have the receipts. Go back to when Mac McClung was in high school and the shows I was doing back then, and we were gassing up Mac McClung. He came on our show, and I freaking love Mac McClung. But at the same time, like, what does it say about the league that like you have a G League guy winning your dunk contest? I mean, that's kind of a rough sell to the rest of America. The scoring was through the roof. I mean, like Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard scoring 71 is awesome, but also at the same time, every night you look up, someone was scoring 40 points every single night, and you're thinking to yourself, like, if everyone's scoring 40, does it even matter anymore? If all these teams are the other night, the Warriors scored 55 points in the first quarter. And at a certain point, I just like kind of tune out to that, and I'm just like, all right, this is almost boring at this point to see too much scoring. And of course, the the push, the tug of war is like, do they play defense? Do they not play defense? I'm not stupid, TJ. I know that they play defense in the NBA. I know how talented these guys are offensively. I know how hard it is to guard them, but also I would prefer basketball games not like finish 171 to 164. Like I think there's got to be some middle ground. And I think that like, you need to change the rules. You need to enforce traveling and carry, whatever else. Like figure out something where like we get the scores like back to respect. Like if every football game was 96 to 81, at a certain point, a guy throwing for 5 touchdowns in a football game would not matter to people, right? That's kind of where we're at with the NBA. That's where I've been at for a few years. Like I love seeing guys make insane plays. It's just when you have random dudes just dropping 40 on any given night, you're like, all right, well, maybe scoring 40 isn't as hard as I thought it was. I
like to see them get drastic with whatever rule change they implement for that. Like I've always thought, what would happen if they made the court like 10 feet longer all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Or if they raised the hoop like 3 inches or made the ball like 4 ounces heavier? How drastically would that shake the game up? Obviously, they wouldn't do something like that, but I would enjoy it.
Of course they're not going to do something like that. But at the same time, like you talk to the old heads, the Bob Ryans of the world that are still like yelling at the clouds about the 3-point line, and to him, he's like, the NBA represents the gimmicks of the league, you know. So like maybe there is a world where they add extra rules, and it's not even the point. It's not even that they score so many points. It's just that like. It is that they score so many points. It is that they score so many points. It's just, it is that. I mean, like, I can't, like, you become numb to it. If every single time, every morning you wake up and you're like, I didn't watch the NBA games last night. Let me watch SportsCenter or hit refresh on my score app to see who was the big performer last night. And there's 4 guys that scored 40 points. You kind of just tune it out. And it doesn't matter quite as much. I think load management hit a crisis point this year where a few years ago, people that were complaining about it were haters. You know, it was like the college basketball crowd that would complain about it, and the NBA people would like push back and be like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, yada yada. I feel like the load management crisis reached a mainstream point this year where I think everybody, even in NBA media, everybody like it's kind of like the consensus opinion at this point that there's a serious problem here, that the guys are sitting out left and right. And I think like it used to be, if you're complaining about load management, it felt like you were attacking like individual players for being lazy or like caring about themselves more than whatever. And now I think people see it for what it is, which is like an institutional problem, an organizational failure of the NBA, that we now have situations where you don't even know what games matter. You don't know, as a fan, you turn on a regular season game and you have Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic playing each other. You've been told that these are the 2 MVP candidates, and then Embiid sits out, and you're like, I don't know what to make of this. I don't know. And then even when like 2 teams play each other and one team beats the other, and you're like, oh damn, so that must mean that the team that won tonight is the better team and they're playing better basketball. But then like if you express that opinion publicly, someone's like, yeah, but you got to remember, like, the other team didn't really care. Like this was like a game that they kind of didn't care that much about, and it'll drive you crazy as a fan, because you're like, how am I supposed to know? Is there like is there a web page I can go to? Can I bookmark it and just check it every morning? You tell me which games matter and which ones don't. This is very confusing. But I think the NBA had a legitimate problem with that this year, and that's not to say there wasn't good basketball being played. That's not to say there weren't great teams and great players, and on and on and on. There's gold wherever if you look closely enough, you can find gold all across the NBA. It's just, as a casual fan, you shouldn't have to look that closely. And I felt like this was one of the problems with the NBA regular season this year. So, and then we end it, by the way, with Dallas. I mean, this is absolutely absurd to have a Dallas Mavericks team technically still in contention for an NBA championship. They technically were, if you know, I understand how absurd it is to say it, but they weren't out of contention. They were in a position where if they win all their games in front of them, they could still be NBA champions. They were not going to win all their games in front of them. I understand that, but that's been a something that when you're in that reality, my entire sports viewing life, like the implicit understanding is a team that's put in that position is going to try their hardest until they are removed from championship contention, and then maybe they take their foot off the gas. Then maybe they figure out, what's best for the organization moving forward for draft picks, all that sort of thing. Dallas was still in a position to make the playoffs, to win an NBA title, and they tank. And Mark Cuban's like smiling about it. Now there's an investigation into Dallas tanking, when at the same time, like all these teams are like been openly tanking for years. It's just a confusing mess, and that's what the NBA was. That's to say nothing of all the off-court problems, all the various controversies and everything else going on in the league. I just felt like this NBA regular season stunk, because every time that I was sick of hearing about Kyrie Irving, and I thought, can we please just focus on the basketball? You couldn't focus on the basketball because there was no basketball to focus on, because there was nobody. It was so fucking frustrating. And I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. So that's. I want to preface by saying that this was a horrendous NBA regular season, but I do think the silver lining in all this. I think the silver lining and the talk. Everyone talks about the Lakers and LeBron at all times, and the Lakers stink. But then now, after the All-Star break, the Lakers are the best team in the West. But is that because they're the team playing the best basketball, or is that because they were put in a position by sucking ass for so long that towards the end of the season they're the one team that has to try the hardest to make sure they make the playoffs? I don't know. It's confusing. But the silver lining in it all is that now you have a situation where I do think the playoffs are wide open, and I think having instead of having a season where everyone was trying their hardest the entire time, and you kind of know going into the playoffs, all right, well, all these teams were fighting for the 1 seed, and Team A beat out Team B by 7 games, so clearly Team A is going to wipe the floor with everybody in these playoffs, and ho-hum, this is going to be boring. Let's just fast forward to the finals, and we can get the 2 best teams to play each other. I don't think I know who the 2 best teams are. The Bucks feel like the best team, but it's absolutely why. I mean, the Celtics in the East, it's the Bucks, Celtics, and Sixers. I feel like those are the 3. The Celtics have a young coach, which used to matter. I don't know how much it matters now that the Celtics have a young coach. I guess it doesn't matter because half of NBA media is from Boston. So like when the Celtics do it, I guess suddenly it's no longer a concern. But if the Bucks were coached by a guy in his early 30s, everybody would be writing off the Bucks, but you can't write off the Celtics because Jason Tatum's. I mean, we've also seen this roster be very, very good in the playoffs. What we have not seen from this roster is an NBA championship. So I don't know. Robert Williams' health is interesting to me. I think he makes them, when he's fully healthy, he makes them incredible defensively. When he's not, they're not quite as good, obviously. I think the Bucks are the best team in the East, but I think the Sixers might have the best player with Joel Embiid. It's very fascinating, TJ. This is the point. You could talk yourself into all 3 of those teams. The West is very, very enticing. It is take your pick at how many of these different teams can make the finals. Nuggets are the 1 seed. The Nuggets haters say they're the only team that cared about the regular season, though, and that Jokic chokes in the playoffs. So does that even matter? I think the Nuggets roster is in a better position right now than it has been since Jokic has been there to go on a serious run. But also you have the Lakers, who I said earlier have the best record in the NBA since the All-Star break. How much of that matters? How much of that is like trying to buy into the Lakers hype and the LeBron hype, and it's all very, very confusing. But again, this is what makes it fun, trying to figure out what the hell is going to happen. The Warriors, you can never count out. I think the Warriors, as long as they still have their same core, I don't care if they're 60 years old, you're still going to look up in April and May and see the Warriors and say, yeah, I see a path. They have a path. They very much can win this. The Suns are going to be awesome. The Clippers are awesome. I haven't even brought up the Kings and the Grizzlies, who I don't think people are taking super seriously, but are obviously, the standings say they are 2 of the better teams in the West. I think that is the silver lining. That's what I'm excited about with the playoffs, is I think that a shitty regular season will make for great playoffs. But the problem with that now, TJ, is moving forward is I think that like we could be in a position to get an awesome playoffs that are very captivating, that we look back on at the end of June and say, man, that was one of the most fun NBA playoffs we've had in a long time. Why should we fix anything about this league if that's what it delivered? And then we come back next regular season and it's somehow even worse than this regular season was. I feel like that's, yeah.
I'll mention a couple. Like, I'm very casual when it comes to NBA fandom. Like, I grew up a Nets fan because they played in New Jersey, and then as soon as they left, I was kind of checked out on the NBA for the most part. But I'm like willing to get involved in watching playoff atmospheres just because that's when it sort of ramps up. And like you said, like a lot of these teams that are in the middle ground or whatever don't really have like the captivating fan base that like any college program does when they're doing well, which is what makes college basketball easier for me to like consume and understand and watch. I think a team like the Kings, like you mentioned at the end, is like the team that the public will back, because somebody like me that doesn't watch a ton or like follows through the news cycles sees the beam and sees like the memes behind that team and how like Sacramento sort of rallied around that team. What did Jake say? Jake,
what was the stat Jake pulled that the stat Jake pulled, the stat Jake retweeted that the Kings haven't been on ABC in however many years, like 2008 or something, 2006. Like it's been an absurd amount of time since the Kings have played on like a real nationally televised game.
Yeah, I think the last time that they made the playoffs, like there was no iPhone. It's been like 16 or 17 years. So like when you see a team like that, obviously,
well, the Kings represent college basketball in some way, and as you said, where it's like not necessarily an underdog story. They were they're the 3 seed in the West, I think. But the fan base feels like a college fan base. It feels like the team that the public is going to rally around. But unfortunately, TJ, their best player is De'Aaron Fox, who is an enemy of college basketball. So I have no choice but to boycott. I just can't watch De'Aaron Fox. I just can't. I just can't do it. I can't.
There's some Big Ten guys on that team, though.
I can't do that. I can't. How did he say it? He was just like, I can't. Nah, man, I can't. Like he was almost like not only did he shit on college basketball, but it was like he was offended that he was asked. He's like, nah, man, come on, I can't do it.
That's a Big Ten heavy lineup, though, right? There's a Murray on that lineup, Kevin Huerter. Yep, Murray. Trey Lyles is from Indianapolis, went to Kentucky. A lot of Kentucky guys. Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox. Domantas Sabonis played for the Pacers. So there you go. Yeah, the Kings are a likable team, man. The Kings are basically everybody. The whole team's Big Ten, as it turns out. No, they're a very likable team. It's just interesting that like if you were when I was a kid, TJ, if you said the team that was number 3 in the West, you thought they were going to win the NBA Finals. That wasn't really a controversial opinion. It feels like that would be you would be laughed out of the room if you said, I think that the Sacramento Kings have a real shot at winning these NBA Finals this year. And I understand why that is. I'm not arguing that they should be taken seriously. I'm just pointing out like the absurdity of where we've arrived with the NBA. That it's like the league openly acknowledges that none of this shit matters until the playoffs, and that's just a very confusing. As a guy who likes order and like to make sense of. I don't know. It's just a very confusing thing. It's confusing that the Golden State Warriors cannot win on the road to save their lives during the regular season. But at the same time, if you tried to argue that the Warriors are going to have problems in the playoffs because they can't win on the road, like does anybody actually think that's going to be a concern? Like maybe they won't win on the road, but it has nothing to do with their inability to win on the road. Like I think that Steph and Clay and Draymond and the rest of the guys know how to win road basketball games in the NBA. Yeah. It is weird that like they just don't put their foot on the gas until the games like matter or death. I don't know. That's why I don't love, like, especially the regular season. Like people will say the same sort of thing about the college regular season. It's like, oh, why does it matter if it's all like dependent on the tournament? If it all comes down to the
tournament, yeah.
But in the NBA,
but the difference is in college, there is the understanding going into every single game that if guys are healthy, they're going to play. Yeah. And the guys that are on the court are expected to try their hardest to win this game. And that we've arrived at a point where that's not even necessarily a given with the NBA, and that is insane. And that's why like I'm forgiving to the boomers, if you want to call them that, TJ, the old men, the Bob Ryans of the world, who I think it's easy for people, the youngsters out there, to just dunk on these old dudes and be like, yeah, what are you complaining? You're complaining about sports again. You don't know shit, old man. Go sit down. But that would make my head spin too if I was of their generation, and you have guys that are like Larry Bird is like paving his driveway in the offseason and throwing out, he's paving his mother's driveway and throws out his back and then tries to play through it. And I'm not saying one way is right or one way is wrong. I'm just saying that's the era that you grew up in. That's like how you understood sports, was like guys are going to cut their balls off to try to win a basketball game. And then now you fast forward to 2023 and there's like, you do live in a world where you're like, I don't even know if this is a game where someone's going to care or try their hardest. It is very confusing and has to, it make your head spin, I imagine.
You mentioned the Mavs. Obviously they're an unique in a unique position where they're on the verge of tanking or whatever. Luka played 13 minutes the other night. It was Slovenia night. Like that's how little these like the owners and whatnot like care when they're not firmly in playoff contention. It's like whatever. There's people here from overseas. Let's sit the guy. Who cares?
These people paid thousands of dollars to fly across the world to watch Luka. He plays 13 minutes and you sit him and don't care. But I do think that kind of stuff is now, like I said, I think as someone who's been complaining about this for years, I do feel like there's been a shift in the way people talk about it. That it used to, I used to be like nervous to bring up these points because I felt like, people would just think that you're just a college basketball guy trying to shit on the NBA and you don't get it, and what are you calling the players, lazy and entitled and yada yada. I was like, no, I'm not calling it. I'm just saying I like basketball and I want to watch the basketball players play basketball. That's all it is. And I do feel like there's been a shift now where I think everybody sees it and I think everybody's on the same page. Now the question becomes like, what are they going to do about it? I don't know, and that's what I said. Like the fear is, I do think that these playoffs have set themselves up to be incredible, and I think at the end of this season, we might be in a position where we're like the end is worth the means. Where if it delivers such an awesome playoffs, then who gives a shit if 82 games of regular season are boring and guys are sitting out and tanking and all that other thing. Quick break to talk about our friends at Coors Light. Sometimes the days can get so crazy that you forget to make time for fun. When that happens, you've got to choose to chill. So go ahead, say yes to midweek happy hours and catching the game after work. And while you're at it, enjoy an ice-cold Coors Light, the beer that's made to chill. There's only one beer out there that's literally made to chill, and that's Coors Light. The mountains on the bottles and cans even turn blue when your beer is cold. That way you always know when it's time to chill. When you need to make time to chill, crack open a Coors Light. It is mountain cold refreshment made to chill. I'm trying to crack them open on the beach here. And the weather's not cooperating. It's foggy and cold in Los Angeles, and I'm getting very angry. But the good news is, if you're outside, your beer's going to stay cold for longer, and the mountains are going to stay blue for longer because the weather stinks right now. But anyway, when you need to chill, pair your plans with an ice cold Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door, Drizzly or Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/Titus. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I think for the Dallas part, by the way, the way you fix tanking, this isn't an original idea, but my favorite idea is to fix tanking. I think getting rid of the draft is a good one. I don't know who the first person I remember throwing that out there.
The draft or the lottery?
The draft as a whole. I think get rid of the draft, and because this is a great example. You have Victor Wembanyama, who's making everyone cream their pants in a way they haven't since LeBron. And everyone's just going nuts about if you have 0.0001% chance of landing this guy in the lottery, that's worth it if the difference is having 0% chance or 0.0001% chance. We gotta do what we can to have, that's what the Mavs decided. They're like, we have to have at least one ping pong ball in the lottery. We have to give ourselves a chance. I think you get rid of the draft. You approach, like, when new guys are coming into the league, you just treat it like it's college and you recruit them and you can sign whoever you want. This is how like the European soccer academies work. You just like you go identify your talent, you sign it. This is how it worked with Ohtani when he came to the majors for baseball. I remember Ohtani was like, these are my top 7. He put out a Tipton edits. I think Joe Tipton made it. It was a graphic and it was like Shohei Ohtani's top 7.
Hayes Fawcett.
And the Cubs were on the list, and I remember thinking, like, this is the coolest recruitment ever. You have a guy that can pitch and hit, and he's going to pick where he gets to play. That's unheard of. I thought we had to draft these guys, and they're like, no, I guess for Ohtani, it's different rules. You should have that situation, and the pushback I think people would have to that is the Lakers and Celtics and Knicks and whoever else are just going to get all the best players. I don't think that's necessarily the case because I think it's going to work like colleges, where the best players don't always go to Duke and Kentucky and Kansas and. In the end, like, they seem to have the better programs or whatever, but like if Victor Wembanyama is coming to the NBA right now, is he going to want to go to the Lakers? I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to want to go play with Anthony Davis and LeBron out of the gate where he's like not the guy. So you have all these teams that can like call Wembanyama. You make your pitch to him. You say, this is what we can offer you. If you come here, we will give you the ball. We will give you X number of shots. Like you figure out like the right level of like the Knicks would actually be a great fit for him because the Knicks do have great players, but they don't have like the super duper star. Like Jalen Brunson is obviously very, very, very good, but like, he's also a team basketball player. So like if Wembanyama came in the Knicks, he'd be like, all right, yeah, you can be the face of this franchise. I just love that idea. I love the idea of like all these franchises making their pick. And like the smaller franchises that suck ass, that is their pitch. Like the Detroit Pistons can go to Victor Wembanyama and just say, come play for us, dude, and you can shoot as much as you want. You can just, it's yours. The whole thing is yours. Just do whatever you want. We'll build the whole franchise around you. I think that's more fascinating than watching ping pong balls bounce around and then guys have to go play at places that they want no part of, and then when their rookie contracts are out or are up, they force a trade and go so, you know what I mean? Like that's the current reality of the NBA. So that fixes tanking too, because like if you're a team that sucks too much and you have like organizational rot, why would the generational talent want to come play for you if you're just a complete mess of a franchise? Then also on top of that, the generational talents don't get stuck having to go play for a shitty franchise where they're going to get run into the ground and misused. They have a say in where they get to play. Your thoughts, TJ?
I'm trying to think of what the negatives are, and I don't know if I have like
the obvious negative is parity. That's why the draft exists. Is like the worst teams can get the best players and like have a chance to like, you know, you're not stuck in purgatory of being garbage forever.
Right. I think I've always considered the opposite, where it was like, what if there was a draft in college so that the rich don't stay rich? Like, what if like you want to do it with all 350, but let's say there was a high school football draft where like the college programs in some sort of reverse order drafted high school prospects, and then you had like 5 stars going to like Ball State or something, and then eventually you had some sort of leveling. Like it wouldn't work like that, but I've never considered
awesome
doing recruiting to pro. I think it's cool. I think like imagine like Zion's year or something if he ended up on a contender instead of the Pelicans and like actually got to play. And didn't get
you actually have a say in where you want to play, and this is something that I've noticed in observing like the way NBA people will shit all over college, but what's fun? De'Aaron Fox is a great example. De'Aaron Fox, I guess I got to be careful because I might not be right. This might get thrown back in my face. You know what? We're here. I'm just going to go down this road. De'Aaron Fox will be 85 years old, TJ, and he will look back on. Again, this is a bad example because I don't know De'Aaron Fox personally, but for the most part, the guys that play college basketball for a certain number of years. Maybe sometimes all it takes is one, but like 1 or 2 or 3 years, whatever. And then go on to the NBA, have great NBA careers. Those people look back on their basketball lives and the most fond memories they have of playing basketball are their college days. Michael Jordan is synonymous with the state of North Carolina. Michael Jordan does not go to Chicago and just parade himself around and be like, thank you to the city of Chicago for all the great times we had together and all. Michael Jordan goes back to the University of North Carolina all the time. He freaking loves it. Larry Bird, the second he was done playing in Boston, every single year, he would get his ass out of there and go back home to Indiana where he's a god. Like this is where he wants to, this is home to these people. This is, and my theory has always been that college to basketball players is the one place in their entire life where they decided where they got to play. In high school and in AAU and whatever else, you're basically, your high school is more or less dictated by, this is how it was traditionally. It's like your high school is dictated by where your parents live, and your parents got a job and Springfield. So I guess the family's moving to Springfield. Now I got to go to Springfield High School because, dad got an accounting job over here and this is what our life is going to be. So I guess I got to go to this high school. Then college comes around. These guys get to pick where they want to play. And they're like, I finally at long last get to decide where I play. And then the NBA comes back and now you're once again being forced into being drafted into a place. And that's my theory is like these guys look back. It's no matter how good players are, for the most part, it feels like players look back on their college years as the most fond memories they have. And I think that's why, is because like you're a young kid that gets to make a decision for the first time in your life. So I'm saying, why not bring that attitude to the NBA let guys. I do think it would. I think parity. I think it would solve the parity problems, because I do think that like the best teams are the teams that have the guys that have the ball in their hands at all times. And if you're Victor Wembanyama, why would you? You might respect the hell out of Giannis. You might love what the Bucks organization stand for. But if I'm Victor Wembanyama, I don't want to go play for the Bucks. I don't want to go like come off the bench maybe for my for the first 3 years of my career. If I don't come, he's not going to come off the bench. You know what I'm saying, though? That like you're like, where do I fit in this organization? Am I the guy, or is Giannis the guy? Like, who's the guy? What's going on here? And if I'm Victor Wembanyama, I go play for the Indiana Pacers. That's what I do. If I'm a good basketball player, I just go to the Indiana Pacers. No, it would be the other part, TJ. I think we just solved basketball, because the other thing is like you would get guys that would want to stay home. That would be cool. You would get guys that are like, I'm from Houston. I want to go back to play for the Rockets. I want to play for my hometown team. Like, this is important to me. It's like, I want to, and you wouldn't get basically what you would then get is every single guy on the roster made a conscious decision to be there, except for the guys that were traded, I guess. Bad example. I'm thinking through this. But yeah, most like guys that decide to be there, there's something to that. And I think the competitive juices would get flowing more. If I made a conscious decision, I want to be here. I could play at any NBA team, and I'm choosing the Miami Heat for XYZ reasons. Every time I go out now, I'm going to have more pride in playing for Miami than like if I feel like I got stuck, playing for the Pistons or a team that I don't care that much about.
Take it one step further. Have it alternate a draft every other year.
Oh, in a lottery. Yeah, every other
year one, it's a draft, and then next year is a recruitment year. Then you have more stars staying in college. Because
right, more stars staying in college so they can decide where they want to play.
If they see who's coming down the lottery, they don't want to go to the lottery. Maybe the lottery pays more money naturally than the top recruitment positions or something.
Yeah.
I think you might actually be onto something here. I'm sure there's got to be a glaring flaw that people are going to comment under this that we're not like considering at all, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, because you still keep salary caps, you still keep all that, so like that's another thing you have to consider.
Yeah, it's not like the Lakers couldn't recruit all like top 10 recruits; they just won't have the money for it.
And I think you do get rid of the rookie scale too. So like if Wembanyama, if you want to pay him $50 million to start his career, well, I mean, the one thing stopping it now, obviously, is a collective bargaining agreement. Like it's all written in the shit. I'm talking like let's fix this hypotheticals when we get to the next bargaining agreement. Yeah, get rid of the rookie pay scale. Keep the salary cap, so you still have the parity of like you can't just the Lakers. If Victor Wembanyama market value is $50 million a year, the Lakers can't pay Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Victor Wembanyama anyway. So he's just like it's just like everyone that enters the draft and everyone that's coming into the NBA for the first time is an unrestricted free agent. And now we have our free agency period, and you get to sign anybody you want. I don't know. It makes sense to me, and I think that solves tanking. And you don't have guys like fighting for the best draft pick at this point, because, like I said, if your organization just stinks and you've been bad for 5 years in a row, good luck trying to convince that top prospect that he should come play for you, because he's not going to want to, because you suck ass. Or maybe he will. Maybe that's part of the pitch. I don't know.
Yeah. They would also probably motivate the owners too to like do something with their billions of dollars that they have. Like, hey, you can actually turn a team around in 2 years if you just buy the players.
Right. Also, we would get more tipped in edits. We would get more respect my decisions, which are my favorite things. That's the only reason I get online anymore. That's the only reason I get on social media is I'm refreshing, seeing who's got the new top 5 and respect. We live in a time with college basketball, TJ, where people put out statements that they're coming back.
Yeah, I've searched.
And they weren't even.
I've searched Dylan Harper's name on Twitter 500,000 times since the tournament ended, I think.
And I'm not talking about guys that are projected lottery picks. I'm talking about guys that no professional team wants. I don't even know if the fan bases of the team that they play for even want them back. And these dudes are putting out statements that are like, "Great news, great news, Bulldog Nation," with like a fist bumping emoji. I'm back. Like, what are we doing here? You're the sophomore 7th man off the bench is announcing that he's coming back for his junior year. Okay, all right, cool. I guess this is that. But I love it. I eat it up. I love these graphics. I think we need this at a professional level.
You should get one made like when it's coming towards next college basketball season. Be like, good news, Barstool Nation, I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah, and then Dave's like, wait, I thought we signed you to a multi-year contract. I'm like, no, that's why. No, you did.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm back.
Just letting everybody know.
I'm just letting everyone know that I'll be back.
In case you didn't know, I am here.
In case there was any confusion, my other harebrained idea. The getting rid of the draft is not an original idea. Apologies to whoever came up with it first. I remember hearing someone pitch that idea, and I was like, that's genius. And I've been infatuated with it ever since, TJ. But this is an original. This is a Titus original to fix. I don't know if this fixes tanking, but I think it fixes the regular season. I think there should be bounties on certain records. I think that Adam Silver, the genesis of this idea is like Karl Malone's a scumbag and people hate him, and he has a ton of NBA records, or at least he used to. I think he still does have some, but the idea of Adam Silver like figuring out the scumbag, the records that are held by scumbags in the league. And you come out at the start of the year and you say, if anyone breaks these records, I will give you a $20 million bonus or a $15 million. But you get $15 million if you break these 5 records. These are the 5 records. And then now you have guys like, even if you have nothing else to play for, you can go on any given night, you will win yourself $10 million. If you break Scott Skiles' assist record, if you break, just pick whatever records. If you're perfect from the field, if you break whatever record that is, I don't know. Or if it's not for the whole year, maybe they do this week to week. Every like Sunday night or every Monday morning, the league office puts out the 5 records for the week. These are the 5 bounty records for the week. If anybody breaks these records, you get $5 million. You get $7 million, whatever number it is.
I love it.
And then all of us watching, you have a reason to be locked in, and you're like, okay, all right, let's keep an eye on whether this record.
I think you could either tonight. The scumbag aspect of it is very funny, like somebody replacing Karl Malone's records. But if you just did like bounties on most points this week or something, I think that draws a whole new dynamic to like, the viewership of like on a Sunday night if that's when the records end or something like that.
I'm trying to find list of regular season NBA records.
I think there's a award still named after Karl Malone. Somebody mentioned I think there's a college award.
Yeah, like power forward of the year.
Drew Timmy just won like the Karl Malone award.
Dude, can you imagine being Drew Timmy? Being like a college basketball legend and having a dominating season, and you're just playing out of your mind, and you're like, wow, what a year. I wish I had a trophy to commemorate this season of basketball that I just played. And the Karl Malone Foundation says, you're in luck, buddy. Here's the Karl Malone Award just for you.
The Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame Power Forward of the Year is the Karl Malone Award.
All right, here we go. Are you ready? So the problem is Wilt Chamberlain owns basically every single record. Most points in a game, 100 by Wilt Chamberlain. We know this. Most field goals in a game, Wilt Chamberlain, 36. Most 3-point field goals missed in a game, 16 by Damon Stoudemire, and then 16 by James Harden like 8 different times. Clay made the most threes in a game in 2018. He made 14. Most 3-point field goals made in a game with no misses is 9 by Latrell Sprewell, and then Ben Gordon did it twice. We could do most free throws made in a game, 28 by Adrian Dantley and Wilt Chamberlain both, but Bob Cousy did 30 in a postseason game, I guess. Most rebounds is Wilt. Most assists in a game, Scott Skiles has 30. Most steals in a game is 11. That's actually kind of low. It feels sort of low, doesn't it? 11?
Steals, yeah.
11 steals. I mean, not that steals are easy to come by, but TJ McConnell has the record for most steals in a half. He had 9 in 2021 and a half.
And then what happened in the second half?
I don't know. Yeah. 11 feels kind of low. There you go. There's a record. Most blocks in a game is 17. All right, so I'm starting to see the flaw in this plan, which is that all these records are fucking insane. But I don't know. You figure out some records. You say here, and then the other idea, and we can move on past this just insane fixing NBA talk. But I pitched this idea to PFT, and he liked it, and that's all I needed. That now I know it's ready for public consumption. TJ is the NBA should do like a Willy Wonka backboard, like a golden ticket deal, where there's one backboard that's able to be shattered. That they put somewhere in the country, and they have like shattered backboard night, where on a random like Tuesday in February, it's like shattered backboard night, and everyone has to lock in and watch NBA games all across the country because we don't know where is it in Oklahoma City tonight? Is it going to be in Boston? Is it where did the shattered backboard end up? But there's one backboard that they make like it's 1991, and you could shatter the backboard, and we're all like, tell me you wouldn't be locked in. I would absolutely be locked in on all those games and be like, all right, where's this damn backboard? And they do that sporadically throughout the season where they're like, if you watch NBA on this night, we promise that one backboard will shatter, provided guys dunk hard enough, I guess. But that's a bygone era, is the shattered backboard, you know?
It's mythical to people of my age, I think. It's like we see the Shaq highlights, and like every once in a while somebody breaks a high school rim or something, but the shattered backboard in the NBA, I think they proved that it's like almost physically impossible at this point with the current rims. Like you could drop
it is.
A piano on the rim and it's not shattering the backboard. Of course.
Yeah, science has gone too far.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. I want more shattered backboards. So I think that one's probably, of all my ideas, that one's probably the worst, but it's an idea nonetheless. Today's show is brought to you by the Barstool Sportsbook, the one and only sportsbook of this show and Barstool Sports. The Barstool Sportsbook is made for you, the loyal fans and listeners, and is the only place to find exclusive picks and parlays from Big Cat, El Prez. The 4-play guys I saw were getting in the action for the Masters. Follow or fade us. It's up to you. Now offering a $1,000 bonus for new players. If your first bet loses, get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So download and create an account today. Use code Titus to unlock your $1,000 bonus. The Barstool Sportsbook lets you bet however you like with daily odds boosts, live in-game wagering, move the line, and teaser bets, and Parlay Plus for bigger payouts. iCasino is also available in select states with table games and slots. If you love the Mark Titus Show, you got to get the Barstool Sportsbook. So download and create an account today, and be sure to use code Titus to unlock your $1,000 bonus. That's the Barstool Sportsbook, code Titus for a $1,000 bonus. Terms apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I want to talk about the transfer portal a little bit because I have some thoughts on this. 20% of Division I is in the transfer portal, or has been in the transfer portal. If you're not paying super close attention to college basketball, you might think that I said 20% as an exaggeration, as a joke. It's not a joke. It's literally 20% of the Division I scholarships have entered the transfer portal. I don't think like. I don't think it's a bad. I don't know. We could talk about my feelings in a second, but I think whether it's good, bad, otherwise, I think like it's very clearly we've reached a point in college basketball where this is absolutely unprecedented, because it's not just the quantity of guys entering the portal; it is the quality of player that is entering the portal. To have a guy like Hunter Dickinson enter the transfer portal when he is synonymous with Michigan basketball these last 3 years, there's never. That man will be synonymous with Michigan basketball for me for years and years and years. Whether you love him or hate him or anything else, you say the words Michigan basketball, you're picturing Hunter Dickinson, and great player, antics off the court, everything in between, whatever. Like, he represents Michigan basketball in my brain. The fact that he's not playing for Michigan anymore, the fact that you have like an All-American caliber guy like that, who he's got to be the most talented transfer in college basketball history. And I'm not a Hunter Dickinson fan. I don't like the guy. He was my nemesis when he was at Michigan. I hope he goes somewhere where I don't have to pay any attention to him. But he's so talented that I will have to pay attention to him. But that's insane. And that is where we've arrived, where guys like him are in the portal. Caleb Love, as I said at the top, I think the circumstances of this year, that's a little less shocking. I think like the sentiment out of Chapel Hill was, quote unquote, it was time, and that's kind of like the thing you say when you kind of have nothing else to say. You're just like, everyone kind of wore out their welcome here. But it is weird on the surface that you have a guy like Caleb Love who delivered the big shot against Duke in the Final Four and just like represented that run of Carolina basketball and will be a legend. I don't know if they put 1 million jerseys in the rafters at Carolina. If you've never been to the Dean Dome, be prepared on your first trip to see like 1,000 jerseys hanging in the rafters. I don't know what the criteria is to get your jersey in the rafter, but I think it is. I think Caleb Love hitting a shot to send Coach K to retirement, that to me feels like it's enough to get his jersey in the rafters. We'll see. But the fact that he's transferring and he's not going to wear a North Carolina jersey and he's going to Michigan now, that's nuts. The big one for me, though, TJ, that broke me. This is because this guy was not the most talented guy to transfer, but this is the sign of the times that like kind of broke me and made me like rethink like holy shit, this is a very real thing, and like this is like nobody is safe. There's no such thing as a safe player year to year in college basketball anymore. Is Ryan Nembhard entering the portal from Creighton? And the rumors are that he's going to go to Arizona. Andrew Nembhard, his brother, played for Tommy Lloyd at Gonzaga. Kerr Kriisa transfers from Arizona to West Virginia. He's another guy that's like, again, Kerr Kriisa is synonymous with Arizona. Like my brain's breaking a little bit. Like there's one guy who's like perfect in the situation he's in, or like I don't know. In the past, it's like Kerr Kriisa is your ride or die guy, and he's shot Arizona out of a lot of games, and he's made some boneheaded plays, but he's your guy, and you got to go down with the ship, and that's how it works, and that's how I felt about Caleb Love, and that's how you feel about Hunter. So to see like these guys shaking it up, it is very strange. But Ryan Nembhard leaving Creighton, it broke me for this reason, because Creighton is in a position where theoretically they're bringing back their whole team next year. Creighton this year was very, very, very good. They had a slide in the middle of the season, but they came in with high expectations. In the end, I think their season delivered on those expectations. It got bumpy in the middle, but by the time the NCAA tournament comes around, they're playing great basketball. They take San Diego State to the wire. They lose on the last shot, the last second foul call on Nembhard, I believe it was, wasn't it? Was it on Nembhard? I can't remember. I think it was Nembhard, wasn't it? Was that Ryan Nembhard that fouled him?
I don't know. Feels like a year ago at this point.
It does feel like a year ago. It was, yeah. That's what I thought. Like it's crazy how your brain, like you, I knew it was Ryan Nembhard, but the second I said it, I was like, wait a second. Was it actually Ryan Nembhard? So they lose on a foul call. They very much were every bit as good as San Diego State. I mean, like that's the takeaway from that game. It was like they could have. It was a coin flip game. The coin flipped the other way. San Diego State moves on. If Creighton wins that game, you're now looking at a Florida Atlantic team that, again, like San Diego State barely beat. It's a coin flip game. I like Creighton's chances against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's a really good team, but if you're doing like put Creighton in San Diego State's place, maybe they beat Florida Atlantic. Then they have UConn standing in their way, TJ, for a national championship. The last time they played UConn in Big East play, they beat UConn. It was at home. I don't think either team played particularly well, but Creighton did beat UConn. And I guess what my point is that Creighton was in a position to bring back basically their entire team that was good enough to win a national championship. This Creighton team was definitely good enough to win the national championship this year. They ultimately lost in the Elite Eight, but they had every bit of the pieces to win a national championship. It just ultimately didn't break their way. I just can't like wrap my brain around right now. It's going to take me some time to wrap my brain around a guy being in a position, being the point guard of that team, being the leader of that team. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form, do not get me wrong, that Ryan Nembhard is obligated to come back to Creighton. I don't think that that's how this works. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know any of these things. I'm not an insider. I'm not a Creighton basketball insider. I'm just a guy that's watched a ton of college basketball in my life. And to see a team like Creighton now get blown up because guys are transferring for reasons that people have never transferred for before, it's just a sign of the times, and it's crazy to me. And I saw like that when he announced his decision, Creighton people, not all of them, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but like there was sort of a sentiment of what I just said, where it's like, this is insane. Like how can you poach a guy from a team that's going to go to the Final Four, and like, damn, name, image, likeness is out of control, or tampering is out of control, whatever. Like just accusations are flying everywhere. And then the other side is like, well, wait a second. Baylor Shireman comes to Creighton in large part because of the name, image, likeness bag. I mean, that's kind of like the scuttlebutt of how he got to Creighton, was that Creighton and Warren Buffett, he's got some deep pockets, and whoever else is Creighton is not short on money. And they were like, hey, Baylor Shireman, you're one of the best players that wants to transfer. Why don't you come back to Nebraska, where I think he's from, and play for Creighton? And so Greg McDermott puts out the statement saying, we at Creighton we've benefited from transfers, we've lost transfers, yada yada yada. I saw there are rumors that Arthur Kaluma might be following Nembhard to Arizona, who Nembhard hasn't even committed to Arizona as of this recording. So, but it's just funny how everybody knows that he's going to end up in Arizona. But my big takeaway from all of it and is just that like this is so obviously. I think I was okay with the quantity I think like I'd gotten to that point where I was like, all right, so every offseason, you cut off like the bottom half of your roster basically, and you assume that they're going to transfer and you're going to backfill them with like some, outcasts from other rosters. But now to see star players of national championship caliber teams transferring, it's fundamentally changing the sport, obviously. And whether it's for the better or worse, that's not for me to decide. I will say this though, and I do find this fascinating, and something's ultimately going to have to give here. Publicly, you won't find a lot of people saying they hate the transfer portal, or they hate the name, image, likeness era. They hate what like basically we're living in the Wild West of college basketball, and publicly you're not going to find a ton of coaches that are voicing their displeasure, and the ones you do stick out to you because they're the exception that like prove the rule. I'm not using that phrase correctly, but you know what I'm saying, that like when Bruce Pearl speaks out on it, when Tom Izzo speaks out on you remember it because you're like, wow, did a coach just really come out and say, like, I hate the transfer portal? Because that doesn't really happen that often. It feels like all these coaches are saying they're all for it. What I find fascinating, TJ, is that, and I swear to God this is true, and I don't know, this is what I found to be true. I have yet to, in private conversations I've had with coaches, with other media people, with former players, with current players, with basically everybody that makes their living off of the sport of basketball, where you cash checks because the sport of basketball exists, and whether you're talking about it, playing it, coaching it, whatever. I have yet to find a person privately that has said to me that they think that this era of college basketball that we are in is for the better, that this has made the sport better, that this is good for the sport, that this sort of thing happens, and this is great. And I just think that like that is an interesting dynamic that we have at play, that publicly, like, we're put in a position where you have to support this, because if you don't, you come all across as anti-player. You come across as like, like trying to restrict player movement, and like the coaches should have rights, but the players shouldn't. And boy, we're getting into a dicey situation here if we're not going to, give these players salaries, all that sort of thing. It makes total sense. But privately, even players I've talked to don't like it, because they're put in a position where there's uncertainty with whether, like, if you're one of the guys on Arizona that thought, like, I'm not saying this happened with Kerr Kriisa, but like this was the one that like jumped out to me. Kerr Kriisa transferring from Arizona, and Ryan Nembhard being rumored to go to Arizona is like stunning. This is something that wouldn't happen in college basketball until this current era. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm using it as an example. I'm using this model as like, just change the names, but I'm just going to use that as an example, that like, what if Kerr Kriisa transferred because Tommy Lloyd was like, listen, man, we're bringing in Ryan Nembhard, so that's the way it's going to be. Like, you can either stick around and like come off the bench, or you can transfer. And then now Kerr Kriisa is transferring to West Virginia because of that. I don't know that to be the case. If it's not the case in this situation, it surely has been the case in other situations around the country. And for that reason, I feel like a lot of players are like, I don't love that this is the situation. Like, I don't love that I committed to a coach as a freshman, and every single year I have to check back in and say, like, am I still do you still want me on this team? And coaches don't love that they have to do that with their players. And we have to do, like, it's like if every single month with your girlfriend you had to sit down and have a talk of like, do we want to continue to do, okay, let's do that. Okay, another month passed. Like, that's the reality that we live in. And it feels like everybody in the sport hates it, or at least the closest you get isn't like, nobody thinks it's for the better. I'll put it that way. Not everybody hates it. There are some people that are like, listen, it is what it is. This is the reality. I can bitch about it, but this is the situation we're in. So I'm just going to make the best of it. And I'm not going to let it keep me down. I've heard that sentiment privately from people, but I've not heard a single person be like, dude, this is awesome. This is like, I felt like the sport was broken, and now that we're here, it's fixed the sport. And this is great. And this is so cool that like, year to year, you have no idea who's going to be on which team, and you have to recruit your All-Americans back to the school, all that sort of thing. And that brings me to the big problem, which is that we can't fix any of this. It just can't. I don't think that, as much as I hate this as a casual fan, and as we can just put a bow on this whole discussion with like regular season and the state of basketball in general with the NBA and college and everything else. A lot of these issues stem from the player empowerment era of basketball in general, across the board, pro and college both. And it gets positioned like it's player versus coach, or player versus school, or player versus owner. And there's the tug of war with the player and the owner. And like for so long, the spectrum swung the other way. And now finally the players are starting to get some of their power back. And I 100% do support that. And this is like this is the part that like just breaks my brain and like makes me throw my hands up and say like, fuck, I don't know what to do about any of this. Because I do 100% support that. And I think Ryan Nembhard does not need to explain to anybody why he wants to leave Creighton and go to school somewhere else. It's his decision, and he should have that freedom and that power to do that, because every other student on Creighton's campus has that ability, and no one would give a damn if the kid in the back row of Econ 101 decided he wanted to transfer from Creighton to go to another school. No one gives a shit. So why should we care about Ryan Nembhard? I do fully believe that. But the problem with like talking about whether players or owners or players or coaches or whoever else should have more power is like at a certain point, the tug of war, like the fan loses out. And it's like, it's more of like a triangle to me. And like, I think as more of these power dynamics shift, there's like no fan empowerment, and ultimately at the end of the day, like this does suck for fans. And the problem is that there's no fix. And I guess that's like where I've arrived, and that's where like I don't know, I'm using this podcast as therapy almost, TJ. I just want to like I think talk it out because I don't know how to fix it, because like I can't, like I know deep down we cannot keep these players from having their rights, and that's both the NBA level and I know why players sit out. You should sit out. Like you should, if you have the leverage, you should exercise it. I would do the same thing. And there's like all this stuff makes total sense, but ultimately there's no denying that it makes for a shitty experience for the fans of basketball. It just does. Like it's like basketball is not as fun to watch and follow as it has been in the past. And I think we're just at like a stalemate of like, how do we fix this? Because the only way to really fix it that makes sense is to revert back to the old ways, but we can't do that because for a million different reasons, nor should we want to. And I don't know where we go from here, both on the college or pro level. So
I think Fanta brought it up at our live show. He suggested if there was a delay in, like, you can transfer freely, but you have to stay at that school for 2 years.
Yeah, maybe there's some middle ground like that. Yeah,
because I don't think they can't go back to like, you have to sit out a year. That's just not how the sport works. Like kids that are at that level,
you can't do that. But what's going to happen though is like the only way college gets out of this is you have to start like the difference between the coaches and the players is the coaches have contracts. So as much as people like to point to how come Ed Cooley just gets to leave Providence and go to Georgetown with no punishment? Well, he literally has a contract where like the buyout terms and if he was to leave his job, like all of that is written out and he has to honor that. And if he doesn't, then there is like some sort of penalty that he has to pay. And like, you know, and the players aren't under contract. So the way you reconcile that is you get these players under contract and you start paying them a salary. Now, the next step to that is at this point, we have now just created a fully blown professional league. This is no longer like a masquerading as an amateur league. This is now fully blown professional basketball we're playing. And at this point, why don't we just go in direct competition with the NBA? Why do we have school requirements and eligibility requirements and anything? If we're signing these guys to contracts to play basketball for our organization, what's the difference between Creighton basketball and Oklahoma City Thunder if everyone on the roster has signed a contract to play basketball and get paid for it? Like, it's the exact same thing. So then, like, that to me is the only logical conclusion that we have, is that we're going to look up in like 25 years and college basketball is just like the NBA. It's just another version of professional. It's just another professional basketball league that exists in this country, where there is no more classes, there is no more schools. That's the only logical thing. I don't know. And I don't know what the fix is. It 100%. Again, I say, like, I hate to keep harping on Ryan Nembhard. I don't mean to put like blame on him or point fingers at him or anything, but this is that to me was like just a situation that like we very obviously are living in different times, because the college basketball that I understand and know and love and grew up on, Creighton brings everybody back and they go win a goddamn national championship. And that's like the whole mindset in that program. And for it not to be that is just crazy to me. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just like it's probably a me problem more than anything else. But I know I'm not alone in that. And I know that like that is a large portion of basketball fans are turned off by that. But at the same time, you hope like the smarter group of us understands that like you can't tell Ryan Nembhard you can't do this. So I don't know what the fix is. Like you said, maybe there's some ways to tweak it, but even a 2-year thing, like you're then at the end of the day, TJ, you're telling a guy you're stuck here.
Right.
Like the idea of like keeping a student athlete stuck in a situation that he wants out of, I don't know how you can do that if he's not an employee that signed a contract.
Right.
So I think you have to sign the contracts, but then once we cross that, once the Rubicon is crossed in that situation, we're now just pro sports and we're the NBA. So
what if I
don't know.
Is there, so obviously there's scholarship limits that every school has a certain number of scholarships they can and can't give out each year. What if they adjusted that to there's a certain number of transfer spots available per team? That you can only you can only intake so many transfers. So like you can enter the transfer portal, but if there's not spots at the schools you want to go to,
so you can only like you can only get 3 guys or something. So you don't have a situation of a team that like Rick Pitino takes over at St. John's and he guts his whole team and then brings, which again might be a bad example because that's just a coach trying to instill like his guys, but or put his culture in as he takes over. But yeah, you can't just you can't just do a hard reset on your program. I don't know. I still think all of these are just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound that's like, we need something. But I don't know what it is. And the problem with the NCAA as compared to the NBA, like the NBA's issues are aplenty, sure, but the NBA has, they're all under the same umbrella. They have a finite number of teams. I mean, the NCAA does too, but it's like 300 plus, the NBA has fewer teams and they're all under the same organization that they play for the NBA, and it's one central, government that's dictating the terms of this, and it's the NCAA has no power. So like these schools are now like the SEC school, like Greg Sankey, the SEC has far more power than anybody in the NCAA office. He's the most powerful man in college sports, and he's an SEC commissioner. And he only represents the SEC schools, and he has no say in what the Big Ten schools do, but at the same time, he kind of does because he's so powerful. And it's just such the legislation that goes on across the country in college sports is it's just such a mess. Like, I don't know how you fix it because everybody answers to somebody else, and there is no centralized power structure anymore. The NCAA is toothless, and everybody knows it. So there's just like a power vacuum, and I don't know how you get the whole organization to pull everyone forward. I don't know. Nothing I'm saying is new, and we can talk about this in the middle of the summer when there's nothing else to talk about. But that's just where it's hard not to have my mind spiral out of control when I see Ryan Nembhard transfer from Creighton, and I'm just like, what the fuck? What is this? I just can't. I can't imagine Jay Williams. Bad example. They won the national title. He was National Player of the Year the next year. But it comes to mind. I have a lot of bad examples this show. I should clean that up for next show. By the way, I'm saying bad example a lot. We should next show we should do a lot of good examples. Jay Williams wins the 0-1 national championship and then transfers from Duke. And you're just like, that's like, how could, what the hell? What'd you just do? That's kind of how this felt to me. It was just like that. It makes sense to me that a 5-star that didn't get a ton of burn his freshman year wants to transfer. It does not make sense to me that the starting point guard of a team that could have won the national championship and brings everybody back is going to transfer. But, good on him. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he gets to do. So that's that. I don't know. I think that's enough ranting for the day. Tired of being soft when you should be hard? 40% of men suffer from hormonal imbalances and low testosterone, and no one is willing to talk about it. The average male testosterone level has decreased by 26% over the past 3 decades. The situation is that you have a bunch of guys that are depressed, that don't have energy, they can't focus, they're gaining weight faster, their libido is gone, but Elevated by Astroflav is here, and it is an all-natural testosterone booster containing 2 powerful ingredients, Fedosia agrestis and Tonkat Ali. This combination in Elevated has shown results of 250-point increase in total testosterone, but can be anywhere between 200 to 400-point increase. Increased testosterone levels means increase in energy, improvements in libido, reduction in stress levels, while building muscle and burning fat. Elevated by Astroflav has over 500,000 bottles sold to men with amazing results. Get a free 2-week trial of Elevated available at astroflav.com/barstool. Just pay shipping. I want to do this on the show, by the way. We got to figure out a segment to end the show on. because I was thinking like I want to get you more in the mix, but I also want to get the listeners more in the mix. So it's not just me rambling to myself every single show about how things aren't like they used to be. I'm way too young for my show to be that. So I was trying to brainstorm some ideas for people to email us or leave voicemails or something else. I had a few ideas. One was guys on chicks, where like women write in, and then we, you and I, offer the male perspective on like some of the questions that they had.
Okay.
Oh, that's been done. Okay, never mind. I'm being told that that's been done. I had an idea for. We can go on to the next one. Then life advice, where we did like people write in and they have like certain life situations, and then we talk them out and kind of give our advice. Also been done. Okay, never mind. Answer the internet. We take hypotheticals and we fuck. That one's been. We could do. Okay. What if you and I did 12 rounds of trivia against each other plus a bonus round, and we each got 3 lifelines, and we.
What if we did the Brandon Walker College Football Show with Mark Titus?
Yeah, send me your college football questions. We end every show where I just
send me your college football questions for Brandon Walker, and I'll answer them.
The one idea I did have, one serious idea I did have. We could just do general emails, I suppose. Just write in about anything. Just send us fucking emails, and if they're funny or interesting or whatever, we'll just read them and have some fun with them. But one idea I did have was, because I'm obsessed with hanging banners and talking about like banners that get hung. And Florida State hung a banner in 2020 that says we were ranked number 4 to end the season, and there was no NCAA tournament, but we were ranked number 4, so technically we kind of made a Final Four in 2020. So hang the banner. I was thinking like, what if people wrote in and basically bragged us about accomplishments they had, and then we had to decide like whether we were impressed by that or not. Like we like something you did in your daily life that's like, and then you and I talk it out, and we're like, I don't know, it's not really that impressive, or that has my attention. Ben Mintz writes in and he's like, I ran a 10K in an hour 35 minutes, and everyone said I couldn't do it in 1 hour, and then we have to decide whether he should hang a banner.
He did a whole segment on the debut of his morning show today, down talking the haters that said he couldn't do it. Even though he didn't do it.
I want to go on record as saying I unabashedly love Ben Mintz. I am a diehard Ben Mintz fan. I cannot get enough of the man. He is the golden retriever of Barstool, which I think people use that term to describe other people like as a negative almost. I do not. I own a golden retriever, and I love my golden retriever more than anything in the world. So to me, golden retrievers are just like the most lovable. I want to be around golden retrievers at all times. I freaking love them. So that's what Ben Mintz is to me. I can't get enough of his content. He's the nicest guy in the world. When I met him in Louisiana, he was so kind. He's the 10K saga is I can't get enough of. I don't know how else to. It's just like if Ben Mintz is making content, I'm clicking on it. I'm watching it. Wake Up Mincy. He was trying to be funny. Like that's what's so fucking funny is like he was you could tell he's intentionally trying to be funny, which is not funny because he's only funny when he's not funny. But by him trying to be funny and being not funny in the process, it's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Just everything about today's premiere or yesterday's premiere of that show that had at least 4 months of prep going into it. And there like wasn't like a thumbnail or a title. Like it's just perfect. He's just like I've never been more locked in at 9 a.m. or whatever time that was Eastern. Like he's the best. Nobody is better at being himself than him.
I'm gonna start nudging for him to start Wake Up Mincy later. So because I'm gonna tell him that I'm on the West Coast and I can't wake up that early. Right. So if he could cater to the West Coast and like start it at 11 Eastern. And 8 Pacific maybe, and just try to slowly push Wake Up Mincy later and later and later.
Wake Up Mincy at like 2 p.m. for the Hawaii viewers. Yeah,
for the Hawaii.
We got to get like a bunch of Hawaiians together to be like, Mincy, I can't wake up this early, man. You got to push that.
I would love to watch Mincy. Yeah, I would love to. I'm a huge fan, but like I can't wake up this early. I can't do it. So you got to.
It's a gambling show technically. It's on the Sportsbook account, and like the gambling segment was like my producer will do some gambling picks because I'm not really good at baseball gambling. Like a great time to start the show, I guess. As soon as baseball season takes over, he's one of a kind, man. He's one of these diamonds in the rough where it's like, how the hell did we find this guy? He was literally just watching an Ole Miss game, and Dave was like, "Yeah, this guy's got it. You're hired."
I've said this before, but I keep going back to it. The first time I ever interacted with Ben Mintz, he called in to play the dozen from right field of an Ole Miss baseball game in the middle of a game as everyone's cheering and going. I freaking love him. So anyway, why did I bring him? Oh, because the email I did. We'll figure it out. But that was one idea I had, was just that could be like a fun. I don't know.
Hang the banners.
Maybe not. Hang the banners. We'll figure it out. Anything else? You got any shout outs before we go?
Nah. I want
to reiterate, I am excited about the NBA playoffs. I meant to I came into the show ultimately wanting to get there. I don't know if I did. I got off on a few old man tangents there for a second. But I really am excited for the NBA playoffs. And I know there are a lot of people that probably listen to my show during the NCAA tournament, and I've kind of been pigeonholed as a college basketball guy, whatever. I want this show to not be a college basketball show. I just want it to be a general sports show. I freaking love the NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about it on the show. I understand a lot of people might have bailed. A lot of people listened up to this point are like, I hate the NBA. Good for you that you love it. I hate it. I'm not going to watch it, so I think I'm out. Whatever. I don't know. I'm excited. I just wanted to say that. And I do like the play-in games, and I think the play-in has been a great addition to the NBA. So I'm fired up to watch those on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Do you consider that a playoff appearance? Great
question, TJ. Is this the first hang the banner question we're getting into the
made the playoff? They made the play-in game.
Should the play-in teams hang a banner that we made the playoffs?
It's the same argument in college, right? Like, some people don't count the 68 as in.
I think if you have to ask, the answer is no. It doesn't count. You know what I mean? I think, like, deep down, you know what it is. Like, if you find yourself, if you're Brandon Walker and you're arguing with a room full of people that you actually did make the tournament, you've already lost. The fact that you have to argue your position to prove to people that you made the NCAA tournament is not a great sign, you know? And that's how I feel about the play-in, guys. I don't think so. I don't know what they officially. It feels like they officially don't count it, do they? You have to advance. You have to be one of the 16 teams.
I want to say
playoffs.
In the NBA, you have to win the play-in game to, like, cash the bets for, like, made the playoffs.
Yeah,
from a sports.
I think so too. I think that sounds right to me too. So I don't count it. No, that's the whole point. You can't. It's called a play-in for a reason. You have to play your way in.
Right.
Before you can play off, you have to play in. Anyway, shout out. Anything else before we go?
No, thanks to everybody that rocked with us all through the tournament. Obviously, like you said, the podcast will take a little bit different of a direction for the next few months or whatever until we ramp it back up. But, like, pretty substantial numbers for getting a podcast off the ground, and kudos to you for hopping into the deep end with the tournament, and I think we pulled it off for the most part.
I have so much more fun doing shows outside of college basketball season. I let my hair down, I relax, we have a little bit more fun. I'm a little more looser. It is more fun for me. I don't know if the people listening have more fun, but we're gonna keep this thing trucking along because I don't know. I'm gonna watch all the playoffs and watch some baseball. We can do baseball shows. Although TJ's checked out of baseball. Just when baseball gets finally exciting again, TJ's like, I'm out. The rest of the world's like, this is awesome. The pitch clock and the.
I do still have the Yankees notifications on my phone, so every Judge home run is like, oh, another one. So I'm like 2 weeks away probably from being fully back in on the Yankees.
Do they notify you if the ball was juiced on the Judge home runs?
I'm in the camp where legalize steroids in the MLB. I don't care. I want pitchers throwing 110, and I want Judge hitting 90 home runs a year. I'm like fully on board with steroids. I don't see why it's a bad thing. If everybody's on steroids, why does it matter?
I was thinking about this. I swear we're gonna end this show, but why? Speaking of other sports going on, why is the NFL draft still 2 weeks away? What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
How is the Super Bowl was 2 months ago? Like, this blows my mind every year. Like, I get excited. I have all my NFL draft takes. I exhaust them all. I share them with everybody. I've already talked out the number one pick, and I've already talked out, like, with I guess I have more time now. We could do it on this show now. But But I felt like the draft should have been like a month ago.
Yeah, especially when like every sports news like traditional channel, all they do is talk NFL off the start of every show. Like they've been arguing like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young for like 3 weeks straight at this point.
And we still have over 2 weeks to go.
That's a good point, because the NBA draft is fairly close to the end of the season.
It's like right after, dude. You could have Game 7. You could have the draft like in less than a week after Game 7.
That's probably the best way to do it. The MLB does it in the middle of the season, which is bizarre. But I feel like doing it like the week after the championship. Yeah, is the best way to do it.
My only theory is that the NFL is in like a stare down stalemate with the prospects where they've all made their decisions like months ago. Like right around the Super Bowl ending, they could have already, I guess the combine. You had to, after the combine, you're just like, all right, we kind of know who we're taking, where, whatever. We have all of our thoughts. Now we're just going to sit and have a staring contest with these prospects and wait for them to fuck up. We're just going to like we're just going to stare at them and wait for them to smoke too much weed or to
wait for somebody to leak some old tweets.
Or like And that's pretty much why the NFL waits, is they're just like, let's just see if they can be patient enough to not get busted with a duffel bag full of weed,
gas mask bong.
A gas mask bong. That's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm like, how could you, if you're a GM, like I would have, if I was the Panthers making decision the first pick, I would have already sent it into the league office and I'd be at a beach right now the last like month and a half, just like chilling.
Yeah.
What the hell do I need this time for to make my decision? All right, that's it. We'll be back on Thursday. I'm going to Chicago this weekend, by the way. Do you have plans for Chicago yet?
I think
have you hammered?
This is I guess a leak, but the Final Four for the dozen is June 8th in Chicago. Yeah. I'm banking on the idea that one of the Yak teams will probably be in that. Yak, the Frankettes, my team, or the Experts. So I think I'm going to plan to go out that weekend and look at stuff.
Oh, okay.
All right. I don't know. I have no idea, though. I'm in my current apartment lease until through the end of August, so I can move at any time.
All right.
I'm excited though. I keep seeing like new renders and stuff, and I think it's going to become very real very quick.
I saw the render of Brandon and I. We're going to share an office or share a studio. I'm sorry, which I'm okay with. Brandon is not, and I saw the render is like on my half. It's just all class. It's just like fucking like it just looks like a legitimate news operation. Yeah. You know, you feel like you're just cutting into. Tom Brokaw or Walter Cronkite is delivering the evening news. That's what it's gonna like. It just looks like class. You're just like, this is all class, and then it's just redneck as far as the eye can see on Brandon's side. It's just like he's got a above ground pool on his side. It's the weirdest thing, dude.
Is that he also has like a burning trash can filled with a bunch of like newspaper in it?
Yeah, dude.
Seems like a dangerous thing to have in an office.
Empty cans of spam like tossed about. I was like, what, Brandon? Why would you want that? And he's like, I'm trying to set the tone. Right. This is what get the vibes right. I'm headed to Chicago to the house hunt, so hopefully I have that figured out by the end of the weekend. But what we're gonna do Tuesday, Thursday. We'll be back on Thursday. Subscribe, review. We'll probably talk about some of the play-in games in the NBA. They're gonna happen Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll talk about all those and get fired up, man. I'm excited. Vacation's over, TJ. It's time to get back into it. Subscribe, review, like, follow, do all those things, and we'll see you guys Thursday.